You know, there's a story that's been on my mind, one that perfectly illustrates the ugly side of prejudice, but also the incredible power of redemption. It all took place at a small spot called the Blue Anchor Bar, a place known more for its sports on the TV and cheap drinks than for any sense of community. Picture it: dark wood furniture, the buzzing chatter of locals and beer taps working overtime. But unbeknownst to anyone, inside something big was about to unfold that would change not just the bar, but the lives of many people connected to it. Our protagonist, Marcus Johnson, had just returned from 14 hard years serving as a Navy SEAL. Imagine that switch from life or death missions to having to navigate mundane civilian life. That's where his real struggle began. Marcus was trained. It's hard to find anyone more disciplined, more focused, yet he found himself battling an invisible adversary: the transition to civilian life. You could say he was in the middle of that awkward phase where your past heroes are still fresh in your head, while the present feels like it's from another planet. So armed with his military service and a determination to forge a new life, Marcus stepped into the Blue Anchor one evening. Just for a drink, some downtime, just to feel like a regular person again. He slipped into a corner seat, the weight of the day lifting ever so slightly, but of course that peace was short-lived. Frank Wilkins, the bar owner, had his eyes on him, and let me tell you, they weren't friendly. See, Frank had a certain reputation. People knew about his unfiltered opinions, especially when it came to military personnel. But it was the blatant prejudice that came next that caught everyone off guard. "What do you want, soldier? This isn't a VFW hall." He spat, his words dripping with disdain. Marcus, despite feeling that familiar knot in his stomach from dealing with bigotry, kept his cool. He knew better than to lose his temper over a narrow-minded owner. "Just a drink, man," he replied, his tone calm but firm, trying to diffuse the tension. But Frank wasn't done. "I don't serve your kind here. We don't need violent types stirring up trouble." The bar around them fell into an uneasy silence. Marcus's heart raced. He felt that familiar weight of anger and disbelief. He was a trained warrior, but why was he so vulnerable in this moment? The whispers of other patrons buzzed like insects, but no one stood up for him. It was just Marcus and Frank in a hostile arena. After that gut-wrenching encounter, Marcus took a step back, collecting himself in the parking lot. He knew he wouldn't be able to shake this off without action, so he reached for a tool he knew he could trust: his old SEAL team. Utilizing encrypted channels, he shared what had happened, detailing every detail of the awful night in that dimly lit bar. The very next day, Marcus received a call from Commander Carlos Hernandez, his old leader, in that no-nonsense tone all SEALs have. "We're going to pay the Blue Anchor a visit," he said, making it clear this wasn't just a social call. It felt overwhelming, but Marcus couldn't help but feel buoyed by the camaraderie, the unyielding support from his brothers, a force against injustice. Fast forward a few hours there, they were a group of Navy SEALs walking into the Blue Anchor like a scene from a blockbuster film. The atmosphere shifted like a pendulum. The whispers turned from skepticism to shock. Was that a SEAL team? Frank's face turned ashen as he recognized the elite status of the men walking through his doors. But they weren't there for pleasantries. Frank would soon learn the price of his narrow-mindedness. Commander Hernandez stepped forward, his voice steady. "We need to talk about the incident that happened yesterday," he said, eyes locked on Frank. It was a measured confrontation, one that commanded attention. Frank tried to backpedal, but the evidence was piled high against him, and the SEAL team had done their homework. They brought fax testimonials in a shared fury that made their unity palpable. "We demand changes," Hernandez continued. "This bar reflects an outdated view that has no place in our community. You will undergo anti-discrimination training. These policies need to change now." The air was thick with tension, every breath a reminder of the gravity of the situation. Was Frank actually listening? His arrogance was still there, but it was shaken by the realization of the strength of the SEALs united against him. And in that moment, something began to shift within Frank. He was forced to see how his prejudices weren't just harmful, they were outdated. As the SEALs pressed their case, it became evident that this wasn't just about one veteran, it was about change, true change that could ripple throughout the community. Fast forward a few weeks. The Blue Anchor was transformed. It was no longer just a bar, it became a beacon of inclusivity. Frank implemented the policies he once scoffed at, committing himself to civil rights training and a renewed vision for his establishment. The community began to embrace this new atmosphere, responding to the upheaval with open arms, drawn not just by the drinks, but by the change that was palpable in the air. Meanwhile, Marcus found his footing in this new life. He launched a business called Harbor Bay Tours and Adventures, focusing on helping fellow veterans transition back into civilian life. It flourished partly because he infused each tour with the ethics and camaraderie he learned as a SEAL. It became a haven for veterans, a way to bond and build new identities. Now the Blue Anchor sits as a symbol, a bar where warriors and civilians come together, where discomfort transforms into dialogue and change is embraced instead of feared. Marcus and his SEAL brothers didn't just fight against one man, they sparked a movement, a shift towards understanding and respect. As I reflect on this incredible journey, I can't help but ask the question, does real change come from confrontation, or can it stem from quieter conversations over a drink? Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar? I want to hear your stories, so drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Together, let's continue to celebrate courage and confront inequality every single day.